Going on, y'all? Welcome back to Going for Two. Back here again with my boy, 24-hour Sports Daryl Green. We're talking about another crazy game one of the second round of Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks. A historic rivalry. It's game one lived up to the expectations. Game one with the overtime. The Knicks won 108 to 105 in overtime. Jalen Brunson took over the fourth quarter, missed the game winner, but ultimately they end up pulling it out after Mikal Bridges able to steal the ball as time expired from Jalen Brown. So to me, the biggest takeaway from this game was just the Celtics. This who the Celtics are. And I don't, and when I say that, I don't mean as in this is a team that's going to blow 20-point leads. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that as in this is a team that is the definition of live by the three and die by the three. This team missed a playoff record 45 3-point shots. 45. You know the saying two is more than three. I mean, three. Oh, I'm tripping. Three is more than two, but two is more than none. And the
Mhm.
Celtics just was not trying to hear that, and they just kept shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting, and that ultimately led to the Knicks getting back into the game. Jason Tatum finished 23 points. Jalen Brown also finished 23. Both players combined for a shooting of, let me see if I have this right, 14 for 45 between
Yeah.
your two best players. And I want to say they was 5 for 25 from the 3-point line.
Yeah.
These aren't two guards. This isn't a backcourt. These are two huge human beings. And they just kept taking step back jumper after step back jumper after step back jumper. And it ultimately gave a chance for the clutch player of the year, I'm sorry, Jalen Brunson to put his team on his back and win the game. OG Anunoby also had a big performance in fourth quarter overtime, leading to this win as well. I just want your thoughts. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this game, bro?
Honestly, I think with this basketball game, it's a little bit different than some of the other game ones we saw. This
Mm-hmm.
is just playoff basketball in a nutshell. The Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks are two very good basketball teams. And if you're the Boston Celtics and you play the way you played and you had the shot selection which you had in this basketball game, if you give a good team so many opportunities to beat you, it's only a matter of time before they actually take advantage of that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I was very frustrated with the Boston Celtics in this basketball game. Like you said, 5 of 25 from the 3-point line between Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, where I thought that in a lot of those situations, they didn't have to settle for as many threes as they did, especially Tatum. There were a lot of times in this basketball game where he would get the switch. There were times we had Jalen Brunson on him. There were times we had Karl Anthony Towns on him. And to just consistently
Mm-hmm.
settle for threes. 4-15 from the 3-point line. He only took 23 shots. So that's 8 shots, which were not 3-point shots. Now tell me if that sounds like what you want out of Jason Tatum, especially given the matchups. Now I can understand if there were situations where, okay, OG, that's a very tough defensive matchup to pull. Mikal, a very tough defensive matchup to pull. But when you get the mismatch, like Brunson, like Karl Anthony Towns, we have to be aggressive, put pressure on the New York Knicks. And I really thought that because for a majority of this basketball game, and not really similar to the OKC game, but similar in the sense that I thought the Boston Celtics had it. Had a little portion to that third quarter, I was like, okay, Boston really has this. And then you start to see the New York Knicks being relentless. And Mikal Bridges, man, 51 minutes on the basketball court. And not only did he just play 15 minutes, and this is why when we talk about these games on this platform like YouTube, you have to actually watch and know what you're talking about. Mikal Bridges on the box score, it's not nothing too fancy. The guy was 3 of
Right.
13. Yes, he had 6 rebounds, 7 assists, but in overtime,
Mm-hmm.
Mikal Bridges made every big play to
Right.
win this basketball game for the New York Knicks. I believe he had 2 steals and a block, and he made a big time 3-point shot in the corner. Mikal, 51 minutes. That's that's basically the whole basketball game
Mm-hmm.
right there from Mikal Bridges. And in the moment where they needed him the most, he stepped up. He talked about Jalen Brunson. I mean, he was relentless. Big time three after big time three. He was out there dancing with Al
Right.
Horford. He said, Al Horford, come to the dance. You get one. Jalen Brown, you want one. There, anybody who wants one, you can get one. Now, it's funny because as good as he was in the fourth quarter, he really made probably the worst play in the fourth quarter
Mm-hmm.
when he missed that game winning layup, which could have put this away. Stopped the game from going to overtime. He had an easy look at a floater. Al Horford shifted over late, had a pretty solid contest on it. But I mean, that's one of those layups with Jalen Brunson. He practices that shot 500 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
That is a layup where he never misses that opportunity, and he did. But the Boston Celtics, they got into overtime, and it just seemed like the relentlessness of the New York Knicks. It seemed like they just wanted this game more, and that's a very cliche way to go about it. But when you look at how Mikal Bridges played in that overtime period, you look at how Karl Anthony Towns was getting after, you look at how OG Anunoby was getting after. It just seemed that this team in New York came into Boston and they just wanted to steal game one.
Right. Right. And you know what? The Celtics, they gave him more than 20, 30 opportunities to do it. You spoke on it. Midway through the third quarter, the Celtics were up 72-52. And after that, the Knicks closed the quarter on a 20-9 run. Went to the fourth quarter, it was 81-72, 74-ish, I want to say. And it was like, wow, this is a game again. And then they gave a chance. They gave Jalen Brunson a shot to take the game over, and that's exactly what he did. And you know what? It's crazy because it was even a point where in the fourth quarter the Knicks were up, and the Celtics they had to fight from behind. They had to climb back and get back to the game.
Yeah.
But you spoke on it, bro. Jason Tatum, he made me so mad every single time he touched the ball. Every time. There were 4 or 5 possessions in a row where he got a switch. It might have been Karl Anthony Towns. It might have been Mitchell Robinson. It might have been Jalen Brunson. And it ends with a step back three ball. A step back three ball. You know what I'm saying? And this is a guy that's shooting 30% from three in the playoffs. So you're not hitting. He was shooting worse than that in that game. So it's not like, oh, I'm hot. I'm gonna keep pulling. No, you're shooting bad and you keep settling for jumpers. And the thing about the Celtics is they run a 5-out offense. All 5 guys on the floor, 90% of the time can hit a three. So if they decide to wall up and send the help, then okay, you kick the ball out. If a 3-point shot is created, I'm fine with that. If you kick the ball out when the defense collapses, or even if you come off a pick and Cat or Mitchell Robinson's playing drop coverage, that's fine. But settling repeatedly over and over and over, that's losing basketball. This is Jason Tatum, a guy who coming into the season, winning an NBA Finals last season, didn't win Finals MVP, he had DNPs in the Olympics. This is a guy coming into this season, knew, okay, I have to show the haters up. I have to show these people that are doubting me up. And in a game against another marquee big market team that everyone's watching, you come out and play like this. And it wasn't like, I think it's different if he was going to the basket and missing. No, he kept settling and settling and settling. And I can say the same thing for Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's not safe from this conversation either. He 1 for 10, 1 for 10 from downtown. And like I said, these are 2 big human beings. They're getting these switches. That's why I love Jokic, bro. Jokic, it don't matter what it is. If you smaller than me, you can be my size. I'm gonna go to the basket. If Tatum could have did that a couple times in the fourth quarter, they would have won the game in regulation. They would have run the game in regulation. And what makes me even more mad, I watched the last series against the Orlando Magic. Orlando statistically was the best defense in the NBA coming into the playoffs. He had the likes of Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter defending him. And he was getting to the basket. Had no problem fighting through the contact, getting to the basket, and creating looks at the rim. But last night, he just didn't have it. And I could talk about this for an hour, how mad I was with him doing that, and how he ultimately played a big part in his team losing the game. Everything else besides that, he played a decent game to me. 16 rebounds, 6 assists. He found a way to affect the game without shooting as well. But when you shoot as bad with the efficiency and with the selection, you put your team behind. Now I don't think in game 2 that they're gonna shoot 15 for 60 from the 3-point line. This is one of the best, arguably the best statistically 3-point shooting team of all time. But this is a home game. It's the playoffs, and you just gave away home court. You cannot do that in a game where you were up by 20 points.
Yeah. And I mean, even going to the flip side for New York, they shot 45%. They shot 45.9% from the 3-point line, 54.8% from the no, actually, they shot 45.9% from the 3-point line, 42.5% from the field.
Mhm.
And you look at that and you say, how consistent can we shoot like this from the 3-point line? And of
Right.
course, you go to the flip side for Boston, how consistently, but we shoot this poorly.
Right.
So it's not to say that Boston is going to continue this. Like you said, statistically, there's no way they're going to continue this. Even in game 2, they're probably going to shoot the 3-point shot extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
But for New York, I think the question is going to be, okay, now let's say we don't shoot the 3-point shot as well as we did in game 1. How are we going to find ways to keep up with the Boston Celtics? Because I believe that the Boston Celtics, yes, they missed 45 threes, but I believe that they're going to continue to shoot the 3-point shot.
Right.
And I
Right.
believe that those 3-point shots are going to fall.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of those hyper scenarios where, I mean, it's a record. It's a playoff record
It
for
is. It's a
missed
playoff
threes.
record.
So it's like, this is not something that you can bank on if you're Tom Thibodeau and the New York Knicks and you won by 3 points. It's not to say that there's not a consistent formula for you to beat Boston, but it is to say you can't come out and do the same thing and expect Boston to still play down to this level. So
Right.
I'm expecting Karl Towns. I thought he was floating around a bit at times offensively, which he has a tendency to do at times.
Yeah.
But I expect him to be more aggressive. Let's get some more looks from him. Let's get some more touch from him early in the basketball game because OG played exceptional. Gave you essentially 30, 29 points, 50% from the field, 6 of 11 from the 3. Like I said, Brunson, he really turned everything up in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Clutch player of the year. We see exactly why. So there's a route for New York to really make things difficult. And if you're Boston, you got to do everything in your power to not go down 0-2 and lose home court advantage.
Right. 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 The game 2 is definitely a must-win game. I want to speak on the Knicks. I spent so much time going off on Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I have completely overlooked the Knicks. The Knicks played a good game. I'm not going to sit here and say it was all Boston losing because you have to win the game at the end of the day, especially if you're down by 20. You have to come back and win the game. I think the key to the Knicks is they have to play. They got to muck it up. You can't allow Boston to play a clean game. And as we saw in that run in the third quarter, it was a very physical. I remember one play specifically. It might have been, I think it was in the fourth quarter. One play specifically, Jaylen Brown went to the basket and he ended up on the ground and they were just fighting for the ball. And somehow, some way, Jalen Brunson comes out with it and it leads to a 3-ball. They have to keep mucking up the game. And with guys like, Mitchell Robinson, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, and Josh Hart, with guys like that, they have the ability to do it. The truth is, the Knicks built this team for this series. They built this team in the offseason to play against the Boston Celtics. They said, we're going to go out and get a bunch of wings that can shoot and play defense. And we're gonna put them behind Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. And last night, we saw it. You said it. Mikal Bridges, if you look at the stat sheet, you would think, hey, he only did that in 51 minutes. But no, his impact was more than what the box score showed. And if he and the other guys, OG Anunoby, had 30 points, but he was doing dirty work as well. Josh Hart, that's why he got an NBA contract doing dirty work. 11 rebounds of his own. So if they can just keep the intensity, the physicality, hopefully the referees, don't, how the refs get in the NBA. Hopefully they don't, I guess, try to make it too clean or whatever. But they can definitely put some pressure on this team. And if they can somehow, some way steal game 2, it will be absolutely insane. I think it also needs to go without saying that the New York Knicks during the regular season went 0-11 against the top 3 teams in the NBA, the Celtics, the Thunder, and the Cavs. And for their first win to come in game 1 of the second round after being down by 20, that's something you have to look at as well.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, because I, it just go back to the point. I'm really frustrated with Boston. I mean, they
Right.
had every opportunity to win this game. This game wasn't supposed to be close. And I mean, even in
Mhm.
the fourth quarter, where you said, like you said, because at one point, New York came back and took their lead, and it was like their first lead since the score was like 33-30 or something,
Right.
33-32. So it was like their first lead since like early in the first half. And they took that late in that fourth quarter, and then Boston fought back. You saw Jaylen Brown get to the rim a little bit. You saw Drew Holiday knock down some big time shots. And Drew Holiday, I
Mhm.
thought that he did it just about everything he could. It
Right.
was about 3 or 4 offensive rebounds that he got late in that fourth quarter, and it was just like, well, Boston gets another second chance opportunity.
Right.
And every time they get the second chance opportunity, they still didn't cash in on it. So I
Mhm.
think, Boston had their shot. They had, long story short, to wrap up everything in a pretty bow, Boston had their shot in this basketball game. They gave it away.
Yeah, I fully agree. And we don't want to overreact to game ones, and I'm not going to do that in a sense because this game was so bizarre. We
Yeah.
saw a team miss 45 3-pointers. We may not see them miss 45. We may not see a team miss 45 3-pointers in a decade or so. But with the game being so bizarre, but we have to talk about it. So game one goes to the Knicks. They gonna be back in TD Garden tomorrow night, or maybe tonight, depending on when y'all see this. And I expect Boston to come out and make a statement. I think Boston's going to come out and make a statement. There is one question mark. Kristaps Porzingis
Yeah.
missed the majority of the game. Only played 12 minutes, did not return. We will most likely get an update on his status. I think him sitting also might have played an impact, but at the end of the day, they built the lead without him. So
Mhm.
you have to finish the game without him as well. But let us know in the comment section, man, how y'all feeling. Knicks fans, I know y'all here. I know y'all are super excited about this win. Um, going for two. 24 Hour Sports, we out here. Yeah.